Do you think the moment that it was decided by President Biden to withdraw the last 3,000 troops from Afghanistan, leaving the capital Kabul, leaving behind an estimated $85 billion worth of prime American military equipment, was that the moment that our enemies saw weakness?
It was. That was the moment the Americans did too. Remember, he was at about 50. There was still this goodwill as we have for newly inaugurated presidents. But prior to August of 2021, he was polling 53, 54% approval, and almost immediately he went down to 42. So the American people saw that as a disaster. And we had just spent $400 million at Bagram, with the biggest air base in Central Asia, would give us all sorts of options with Iran or China or Russia, and we could have watched the Taliban, and they were behaving. And we fled in the greatest humiliation since Saigon, and we left our allies hanging without notice. We left thousands of American contractors, tens of thousands of sympathetic Afghans who were murdered or sought out. And as you say, we left all of this hardware that's now appearing all over the world in terrorist context. And our enemies thought, well, if they're going to do that, they're not going to do anything to us. So almost immediately, Putin massed troops on the border, and we heard Biden say, well, if he goes in and it's a minor offensive, there'll be no consequences. Or let's suspend aid to Ukraine, the $100 million, and he'll look at that magnanimity as friendship to be reciprocated. Didn't happen.
No, and I have to say, I've been confused myself over the years about Putin. I've always thought, well, this guy's a smart political operator. I mean, not somebody I want to take home to meet my mother. Not a country I wish to live in as a journalist or a broadcaster. But I always thought he was a very smart political operator. And the American right appears to be very, very confused over Putin. Some say, look, what he's done to Ukraine, what he's trying to do to Ukraine is unacceptable. Others in the conservative movement say, well, Ukraine's a corrupt country, Zelensky's not what he seems to be. But I wonder, just big picture, is the argument that Hitler moved step by step, the Sudetenland, Czechoslovakia, Poland, do you believe there is a comparable historical parallel we can draw with Putin, or does he go as far as Ukraine and no further?
Well, I don't know if there needs to be. He crossed the borders of Ukraine, and he had a desire to absorb the entire country based on his irredentist arguments. And we in the West stopped that by giving them arms. I think we should continue to give them arms to stop it. But whether he can go into Sweden or Norway or I'm not sure that he's able. I'm not sure that he wouldn't want to. But in comparison to us versus, say, Hitler in comparison to Britain or France, I think he's much weaker in terms of the allies. Yeah. So I'm not sure he has the wherewithal to do that. But I do think it's a good argument that he provides a necessary reminder to NATO and the West that it's weak and it needs to rearm. And I think it's starting to do that. And I think it's been, in that sense, I'm not sure that we should subsidize weaponry to conduct offensive operations inside Russia all the way to Moscow because of the unpredictability of a nuclear power. But that being said, it does seem that we've lost, meaning the world, have lost more dead and wounded now in Ukraine in the last 2 years than the Battle of the Somme. We're right about 1,800,000 Russians to 1 million and Ukrainians dead, wounded, or missing. And at some point, I don't see Ukraine, the offensive, as expelling everybody back to the pre-2014 borders, nor do I see Russia with the ability to absorb Ukraine, as was their initial objective. So at some point, somebody's going to have to come in and say, look, Ukraine was never going to get Crimea back. It was always disputed. It had been an independent nation after the fall of the Soviet Union for a couple of years. They're not going to get some of the Donbass, but Putin's got to get back to where he was before February of 2022, and maybe they can work out some kind of thing that will stop the slaughter right on Europe's doorstep, and find a way of not rewarding Putin for his aggression. And I don't know how that's done, but if this keeps up, it's going to be World War I.
Yeah, I mean, look, as you say, it is a replay of World War One. It's even trenches and artillery barrages and infantry assaults. Yeah. The figures are truly, truly horrendous, horrifying in almost every way.